let's get started, right? Surely but slowly, right?
Here we go.
Okay. So, hello everyone, welcome uh, to this webinar, the roadmap to digitalizing consulting procurement, and we'll discuss key insights and pitfalls to avoid. So it's all about a transformative. It's hard. It's end of the day. Sorry, I apologize. A transformative journey to uncover how to supercharge your consulting procurement process with digital solution. It's all about that, and we'll have some goodies at the end of the session. So stick around till the very end, and you'll get some extra information and goodies to download. All right, let's go. But before we get started, if you've been in this webinar already, I'd love to share some nice quotes, and this is one of them. It's the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. And it's all about challenging the status quo, and this is what we've been doing in the consulting procurement world, and moving one step further now, exploring how digital transformation can make the impossible possible. And so this is all about that. That's what we're about. Oh, sorry. This is what we will talk about today. I will get there, right? Sorry. Okay. So what are we talking about today? We'll talk about, of course, digitalizing procurement, but in particular consulting procurement. But we want also to avoid the common pitfalls that come with such digitalization and the particularities of consulting procurement. So we'll start with reminding you what are the unique challenges of consulting procurement and how tailored digital solution can address them, and we'll come back to what we call tailored digital solution. Then we'll tell you how to get started, and it means to assess where you stand in terms of maturity, set your goals for your transformation, and then start transforming. And then we'll also discuss, how you manage change, how you engage your stakeholders, and that starts with building a compelling business case. And finally, we'll get you some key insights on the common pitfalls and how you can maximize the impact of your digital solution. This is what we'll go over. I mentioned that very quickly, so I will move on. This is the agenda for today. So let us quickly introduce yourself. I'm Hélène Lafitte, for those who don't know me. I'm the CEO at Consulting Quest. I specialize in helping companies optimize their consulting procurement with practical tools and strategies. And with me today is Laurent Thomas. He's my CTO at Consulting Quest, my co-founder as well. And he brings deep expertise in digital tools for consulting procurement and in transformation. So we're thrilled to be your
Hi,
guide
everyone.
today as we share our insights and stories and strategies to help you transform your approach of consulting procurement. Okay, let's go. So we start with why digitalization is essential in consulting procurement. And going back to what's the problem with consulting procurement, right? The first thing that is really a problem, and particularly for consulting procurement, is the lack of visibility. I think that all people who work in procurement and have to handle the consulting category know that not knowing what's happening in consulting within your organization is really what makes it so hard to gain maturity in the way you manage consulting services. It's hard to increase the professionalization of your teams. It's hard to manage properly the category, when you don't have that visibility, you cannot bill supplier panels and you cannot have opportunities on volume discounts. So this is really the starting point, that no visibility means that you have some sort of a block, a ceiling to your maturity in terms of consulting procurement. Another element is the lack of customization. What do we mean by that? Is that very often procurement has those standardization of processes, but they don't always fit with consulting, which is a bit different. A bit different because it's intangible. So there are other, of course, intangible services. It's hard to measure. Also, the relationship within the company, the stakeholder relationship, is really complicated. First, because it's everywhere in the company, but also because the people that are buying often, higher in the hierarchy, and it's hard to challenge the status quo. And therefore, because consulting tends to bypass procurement, and maybe when you call, it's the very end of the the process, and you're just here to open the PO or to negotiate the 5%. So that lack of customization is also something that is a problem with consulting. A third problem that is not specifically a procurement problem, but it's still a problem for how you really make the most of your consulting, is that often it's not integrated with strategy, which means that you may have the spend happening on projects that are not aligned with strategic priorities, right? But all because of that, it's really hard to identify and leverage synergies. And we work, Laurent, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we work with a client recently that we started to analyze their spend, and we noticed that they had a huge part of their spend which was on SAP integration and customization, when that was nowhere in their strategy goals. And most of the main goals that were on the strategy booklet were not represented in their spending consulting. And that disconnect is how can I say,
Puzzling.
yes, exactly, because it should be aligned. We should see that it's fitting, right? And the last part is project management. And again, this is not procurement, but this is a big deal. It's some companies launch projects in consulting, but they don't measure the performance of the project. They don't really manage them, and it ends up with poor outcomes, delays, and cost overruns. And again, this is wrong for the outcomes that you are expecting, but also that will mean that your costs will pile up, right? And so this is what's wrong with consulting procurement. Laurent, do you want to add something to my picture?
No, we'll have the opportunity to come back to those various items, but one of the key elements that you have here is leading to poor ROI. And ROI will be a guiding element in all this. You need to have a return on your investment. When you're launching any transformation, you need to have a case for change, but you need to have a business case that supports it as well. So, well, this will come back quickly.
Absolutely. So we're making the case for digital in consulting procurement because we think that it can be a game changer. And we see four main reasons. The first one is transparency. So we mentioned the lack of visibility on what's happening. Making all the consulting procurement going through the platform will help you have an overview of what's happening of the spend and the performance. And it doesn't mean that procurement becomes a bottleneck, because that's one of the things that but procurement can be reproached with. It's because you're just getting in the way. Here, you're not. You're just getting an information on what's happening. And that's the start of doing your job right as procurement. So that's a very important step. The second step is about efficiency. Of course, when you go through automated workflows, all those new digital solutions make things very smooth and seamless. And obviously, this has time and this has resources, which means that even with resources that are limited, and we know they are limited in procurement, you can do more because some of the not added value tasks are now automated through the platform. So that's also something where digital can really help. Another element is collaboration. Um, what is really, really critical in consulting because of its unique, um, you know, unique particularity, which is that business line know more about everything than you do, and they have to be extremely invested in the procurement of consulting if you want it to work. And this is what makes it so complicated, because even though they know more about what they want and the outcomes they want, they don't know how to buy. Yet in many companies, they buy, they do everything, and therefore they are leaving money on the table to make it short, because all those best practices in procurement are not applied. Likewise, if you just focus on procurement and you don't take into account the needs from the business lines, you're also leaving, and this time it's not money on the table, it's value on the table, because you don't get the value you expect. So you need to find, that balance between that, and that's only through collaboration. And those new digital solutions help to centralize communication across team on a single platform. And that makes everything smoother in that regard. And last, of course, it's value creation. I mentioned that before. And that's the particularity about consulting, is that we are creating through a consulting project, what you're expecting is value. And it's value often on the long run, on the long term. It can be top line, it can be bottom line, but in short, what you're looking to create is value for your company. It's not only about buying a office supplies or an office of a chair. You're really trying to create some long-term strategy. You want to increase the productivity. So it's that what we're talking about. And here, that's where digital can help you to put together some information and make sure that you align your spending with your strategic goals. But for that, you need to put that together and compare, right? And that's where digital can really help.
And I think that's the key point. Digital can help. It's like at some point, a couple of years ago, people were saying, I don't need a digital strategy. I need a digital to support my strategy. Here, it's really about you have a transformation in mind. You want to achieve something, and digital can make this happen or can make sure that this sticks. It's not about implementing a digital solution for the sake of saying, hey, I'm modern. I've implemented a digital solution. If you don't know why you're doing it, or if others don't understand why you're doing this, then it will be challenging.
Absolutely. So also, one issue that we've noticed in the solution that are available to procurement leaders that are in charge of consulting is that the category agnostic solution that are the most common solution, we're talking P2P or S2P solutions here, are made for all categories. And before they're made for all categories, they're standardized. And the problem is that, as I mentioned before, consulting is a little bit one of a kind, not exactly, but it's different. And so when you try to fit it into those processes or focus only on cost cutting, that's where you're not getting the most of your consulting procurement. And you need to go to something that is more tailored to what consulting is, right? And so it means have processes that are a bit different. You need to have some focus on value creation, and also, and I think maybe most importantly, the value that you can get from consulting go way beyond procurement. And if you really want to get the full benefit of those projects that you get and that money that you invest in consulting, you need to take into account what's before procurement and what's after procurement. And we mentioned that before, demand management in where do I spend my money and what are the projects that are the most aligned with my strategy. And once the contract is signed, how do I manage my project? And how do I keep track of the milestones and the deliverables? And how do I make sure when I pay the consultants, the work is delivered? You want to add something, Laurent? Okay. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I was wondering why you were moving to the next page when I was making a comment on the previous one.
Because I couldn't hear you, were on mute.
If you don't mind, yeah, let's move to the previous page if you don't mind. I was just making a reference to the tech stack that you find in most companies. I mean, in most companies, you will, in the large ones, you will find an ERP. Most of the time, it's going to be SAP. And then you will find a layer that will be a platform with a P2P platform, such as Evalua, such as Jaeger, such as Coupa. Those platforms were great and were developed many years ago to put some kind of structure in the way companies were buying stuff in a form that was more user-friendly than the traditional ERP. Now what we see coming up in many categories, it can be on categories vertically, or it can be on several topics or steps of the value chain. You find best of breed solutions that can either connect directly to the ERP or connect to the platform or connect or be standalone, depending on how you use them. They are cloud-based, of course, but that can help you to really focus deeply on one specific topic with all the customizations you need to have customer buy-in, internal customer buy-in, but also to have something that's really adding value and that is perfectly suited to your needs and to your internal processes. And one is not replacing the other. It's really a complement to focus deeply on some categories, for instance. Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I think this slide is just summarizing what we were saying before, is that when you want to digitalize consulting procurement, all the elements that we mentioned before, like collaborative processes, visibility, have that end-to-end elements and have those tailored elements to the specificity of intangible services are very important. And also because consulting go through SOW and contract that are different from what you can get for direct or more industrial or other indirect categories, and so you need to have those tailored or customized elements to really do it right, and your solution should bring you this, and that's why everything we see here is what you should see in an ideal solution for consulting procurement. So now that I hope that we made the case for going for this type of solution. The whole thing is, where do we start? Because you just say, yeah, great. I think that indeed it's great to implement a digital solution, but are we ready? And what will that solution bring us? So the first thing that you need to think about is, where do you start from? And that's also and there's two elements into this. One is what's the size of the prize, if you will, and that's how you go through what do you spend, how much money do you spend on consulting, who spend that money, who are the departments that are driving spend, who are you spending that with, what are the consultants that you're working with, Are you happy with their performance? And finally, is that why do you use that for? Is it aligned with your strategic goals? Is it aligned with your long-term ambitions? And this is how you build that first part of a diagnosis, where you understand this is what is consulting for us, and this is how we use it. That's kind of that, and that's how you will understand what's at stake in terms of the ROI part of your analysis.
And
That's your
it may sound silly, but when you look at a lot of procurement systems, you might end up with just how much you spend. And it may take a lot of time to clean up that and to understand what you've spent
yes.
on consulting. Then you will have to understand with whom. And God knows that all those companies have different names. They might be in several ERPs under different aliases. They have acquired companies that have different names as well. So just the with whom is not an easy piece. And then who is spending? We have recently faced a situation where indeed the who is spending was not in the procurement tools, and you had to go back to the ERP to get it, and then you had to reconcile with the data from the procurement platform. And for what is still unknown, because there is absolutely no way to understand what the project is about when you just have the code name of the project and you don't have any access to the project leader or to the proposals.
Mm-hmm. Then when you have that element on, finally, how much do we spend, what's my spend, and who I spend with, you also need to understand how mature you are at buying, now actually utilizing, buying, and managing consulting. So the few that's maturity, assessment actually. So how mature are we compared to peers, and what are my strengths? There must be some parts of the process where we're strong, some others where we're weak, and that's how you identify those potential the areas for growth, and then assess what risk you're taking in moving the needle or not in more maturity. And that's how you build that qualitative part of the diagnosis, is that where could we go and what would that mean for us? And that's a very important part, because you cannot determine how much you could gain from implementing a digital solution as part of a transformation for how you buy consulting if you have not done that diagnosis, because it's not always a good idea to start there with a digital solution. Maybe your maturity is so low that before you get anywhere, you need to increase that maturity. There's always this saying that I've heard a long time ago that was saying, when you digitalize crappy processes, at the end of the day, you only get digitalized crappy processes, which means that's if you really want to improve, you need to also look at how you work, and not only the tool that you use for that. So once you have that, you say, okay, I know how much money is at stake, I know how mature we are, and now you need to think, so where do we want to go? So what's our vision for consulting procurement in the future? And that's one dimension. But you cannot do that without thinking, well, this is our situation, this is our specific organizational context, so we cannot go further than this and all that. Let me give you an example. If you are a startup, for instance, and you say, we want to do better in consulting procurement, we want to buy better, then you can do some have some templates to have to contractualize with your consultants. You can build some templates for the SOW as well. You have an NDA. You have like the basics, that you need to buy. But do you really need to go up to the point to have a dedicated procurement person in charge of this? Do you need to have a digital solution to handle only consulting and manage a panel and so on? That's a question, and that's a question mark. Actually, I'm not so sure that you need to get some best-in-class processes when you're startups. What you need is really, have the basics and do them right. And so while when you're a very, very big company and you're spending hundreds of millions of euros or dollars in consulting, then you should be best in class, or to at least aim to be best in class in all the dimensions. So that's that. The end of the journey for your company depends on who you are, where you stand in your maturity, and also where you stand in the maturity of the rest of the procurement team, because it's not in a vacuum. You're part of another team. So that's the second thing. And then once you have that, you need to define what improvements you can make, and that's measurable. And then make sure that whatever you define here is aligned with your company-wide strategic priorities, because you don't want to go in a direction when the rest of the company is going somewhere else, right?
So one could say that this looks like a change management roadmap, and it is. But at the end of the day, doing this right will also help you to establish a list of criteria that define what the solution that you will select should fulfill. And then it will help you to identify if you should go for a generic platform like Jaeger, because what you want is mostly to put the process under control, make sure that there are some competitions organized, that the contracts are stored in a database, that you have a connection with the ERP to create a purchase order, something like this. Or maybe you want to do much more than that, and then you need to go to a full solution like Consource, where you will have from the demand management down to the grave and the analysis of the performance. You can also focus on just the sourcing. And if that's an autonomous sourcing that you want, maybe a platform like Globality will be the right choice. Depending on whether you want something that is flexible to do at the same time consulting and contingent workforce management, you may want to go for some solutions like Fieldglass or Beeline. There are multiple solutions out there. We have created with Hélène a cartography of that that we will share after the workshop. I don't think we have it in there, and we didn't want to push our own solution too much by putting logos and stuff like this in this webinar that we have designed to be fully independent. But it's critical. I look back to this slide. It's critical to know what are the features that you want, what really matters, and then to look at the selection and not to start from the platform and then backward create your requirements.
Absolutely. And so another element as well is to make sure that you're ready also for such a solution. It goes through the quality of your data. We discussed that briefly, but that's a very big deal. If your data is not clean enough, it will be very hard to implement such tools, because you either will need to have a standalone solution, which works, but it makes the work for procurement and for buyers a bit more complicated, and you may not want that. Or then you won't have historical data either, so it will be hard to define if you have made progress indeed. So data is a huge deal. Existing IT ecosystem and ongoing roadmap, because most companies have a roadmap for digitalizing their operations. So there might be something happening, and you need to make sure that you're not going into clash with that. You may have ongoing transformations, and it's never good to have too many things happening at the same time. So you want to make sure that whatever you launch will fit into what's happening already and not go against, but not also overwhelm the people that that are supposed to implement the new ways of working. And finally, it's also about culturally, are they ready to accept a new tool like this? And also, are they ready to accept new ways of working on that specific field of procurement? And all of this makes you understand, are we ready to have a new tool on that? And are you ready to move to new ways of working? Because that's for sure, implementing those solutions will change the way you buy consulting, and that's a certainty. And finally, and just to kind of move to the part where we explain how to convince your boss, of course, you need to identify what are the obstacles and mitigate the risk. Here, you were purely in change management, but let's be very clear. When you implement a digital solution, you need to be extremely careful about how you manage change and how you accompany that project from inception to completion, right? And then after. It's really important. Human factor is important. Of course, IT challenges. Make sure that you have a governance that is clear. Ensure that your processes, the one that you will create for the tool, really work with your organization and are not misaligned with the rest of the organization, and make sure that people are trained and have the right skills to use that tool. So adoption is really the key in digital transformation. You want people to use your tool, right? It's not just to have them just make sure that you have the right you have your control, or you're just measuring performance. They need to have something for them in the tool that makes their job easier, and that they need to see the benefit of it.
And this is valid for all the stakeholders. It's
Yes.
not only a procurement driven action. I mean, strategy has a vested interest in having a view on what are the initiatives that are funded. Are they supporting the strategy? Are we doing the right thing? Are we working with the right guys? Finance will want to know how we are spending money and what's the ROI of all this. They may want to put also some controls and validations in the workflows, depending on the amounts at stake, and you could automate all this and the reminders and all these kind of things. Procurement, of course, has an interest in looking at the entire process. But then when you think about project management, if you have project management embedded in the platform, you hit two birds with one stone, because you structure the way you exchange with your providers, and at the same time, you can trace the deliverables so that they can be used for future projects. I drove the transformation of a chemical company on the commercial excellence front, and we were deploying Salesforce.com. And the first reaction of the salespeople, for whom we had selected the best application out there, was that we were trying to police them and control what they were doing, and making sure that they were visiting customers and so on. So adoption takes time. And it took a lot of time for them to see the benefits of having centralized information, of having access to information from other sales guys that were working the same accounts, implementing some transparency and all these kind of things. Because at first they were just saying, hey, I have all the information in my mailbox. I know where I am with my clients. I'm providing an outlook on my pipeline to my boss, and that's good enough. So why should I change? Why should I use another platform? And that's the challenge you need to overcome with digital transformation in procurement, be it on a consulting procurement platform or on a generalist platform as well.
Yeah, of course. But let's say that the first step is indeed to convince your boss. Would you agree with that, Lauren? And so here, I think that we've seen that a lot, and people are telling us, yes, it's great. I'd love to digitalize and do things, but how do I convince my boss? There's only one way, is to build a business case and show how this transformation or this tool, and that applies to any type. We talk about digital transformation, but that applies to everything. Every transformation that you want to lead, you should go there and look at what's in it for us, and what is the value that we would get out of this implementation. And it's always start with where we stand today. So remember what I told you, you need to start with knowing what's your maturity and how much money you're spending. That's where you use that information. This is what's at stake. This is the quantitative part of the analysis, and the other part is how mature are we? And that's the second part. And this is just a diagnosis. This is how bad we are at it, actually, or how poor we are at managing consulting. And then that's the part that is a little bit more difficult, is that what does it mean to do nothing? What will it cost us to do nothing? And you could see that in a positive or a negative way, but the idea is really here is that why can we not continue the same way? What is the reason why today is the moment where we need to change? And it needs to be very compelling, because this is what will help you convince, your boss, among others, that you need to move forward on such transformation. So that's, the first part. This is, we in a nutshell, we suck at it and we cannot continue that way. We need to change. And then the second part is, this is where we should go. We should go, we should implement demand management. We should have project management for consulting. We should improve our organization, our processes. We should do strategic sourcing on consulting, and then we should leverage digital. And as you can see, digital here is just one dimension out of those, and because it's an enabler in achieving your transformation objective, but the main focus is really on what you will get from all those, best in class practices. That's where you really get the benefits. It's not the tool itself, right?
And one key element is that in most companies that have as a starting point a pretty low maturity when it comes to procuring consulting, it's possible to save between 20 and 30% on the total cost if you implement good practices. Not even rocket science practices, just good practices, and looking at what you're doing and cutting what should not be there, and then sourcing properly and not using the top-notch consultants that are costing an arm and leg for things that are commoditized. And when you apply that to most of the companies that are spending between 0.5 and 2% of their turnover on consulting, let's say 1% to make it simple, 1% on let's say a 5 billion company, that would be 50 million. 50 million, if you can save 20%, that's 10 million savings.
Yes.
Per year, recurring.
EBITDA. Right. And indeed, that's how you show the value that such transformation can bring. And of course, the digital solution will help you to make sure that to support the change in the ways of working, but you need to accompany the change. That will be kind of a big gap between where you were before and where you want to go, right? So after that, you need to think about what's the right solution, right? So you have the choice. So we kind of put that a little bit as an example, because as we said before, there is no a one-fits-all solution, but you need to explain why you think that the solution that you're pushing is right for your needs. And that's key to really make the case for that. Because as we mentioned, it's an enabler to a transformation, and therefore it has to enable really. And you need to show the link between what you want to achieve in terms of improving the way you manage consulting and you buy consulting, and how that solution will really help you make that happen. Okay, And so it's not only about digitalizing processes. Again, it's just how is that really helping you push and go up the maturity ladder, right?
And then, as I was mentioning earlier, and this was also a question from Zelim, what would you recommend in term of solution? It really depends on what you want to do and what
Mm-hmm.
part of the value chain or what part of the end-to-end process you want to cover. You want to cover just the beginning, the sourcing part. There are several solutions out there. I mentioned earlier globality, but it will come back to me. There are several others that can do the trick. You have also solutions that are now popping up as focused on sourcing services. They would not say consulting. They would address a broader spectrum of services. You would have Padua in Germany. You would have Zivio in the UK. You have Consource that we have developed, of course, that we like a lot because we created it. So that's our baby. But I would say, generic solutions that can do the basic job if you want just to put things under control. It really depends on how deep you want to, how far you want to go, and how much you want to cover from a process standpoint.
Yeah, and I'll go one step further because it also depends on how you spend your money on consulting. If you only spend on very, very small consultancies or freelancers, you might look at some VMS that can do the trick for such, needs. Well, if you work with larger consulting firm or boutique consulting firms and so on, you really need to go to platform that can help you handle the SOW and the contract management, and you don't want to have all your money that go through the platform and then you pay the platform. So it really depends on how you want to what you want to do and what your spend looks like, and that's how you
For
can
instance,
decide. Yeah.
last year I spoke with a French company working in the nuclear space
Yeah.
that is not EDF.
Oh,
And
that's another one. Okay.
the company wanted to keep its ecosystem very lean, so they asked for a custom development on Jaeger to handle a few things that they wanted to add for the procurement of consulting and some other services.
Mhm.
So that's also another way of doing this. It's a bit costly, in my opinion, and under delivering in terms of functionalities. But at least if the prime driver was keep it simple and just have one app, so that it remains very straightforward for our teams, that's an option as well.
Absolutely. And then, just continue what you should explain also is how you want to approach the implementation. So one thing that we recommend is to really thought change management in the beginning, align stakeholders. After all, we did transformation and change before, so maybe that's the bias, but I don't think that that's only that. And then implement with some pilots, making a proof of concept, making sure it works. That will also allow you to, if you are with a solution provider that can also adapt a little bit and develop some functionalities or tweak some functionalities for you. It will give them the time to do it, so when you really go company wide, you'll have the perfect solution. But as a rule, I would recommend to go for that. Independently of what you choose, where you choose, you need to explain why you're choosing that approach and how it makes sure that you get the buying and that you'll get the highest adoption level. We said before it was the key for digital transformation. This is what you want to achieve here, making sure that it works, that you're really testing the solution in a real world situation, but also that you're driving adoption through the example of seeing it work with pilots.
So often what we are doing is a kind of a three steps approach. We tend to work on the optimization of consulting procurement to drive quick wins. And
Mm-hmm.
and kind of immediately create a budget to fund transformation initiatives, for instance. But then the next step can be to implement the solution, like the one we are using, but it can be done with others, with our support to manage indeed the app and make it work. So you are in a mix between, I would say, using an app and managed services as an externalized procurement. And then progressively they take over, and then you move to just a support model. You have some apps that are pure apps where you don't get the human support. For adoption, it's pretty neat to have experts accompanying you during the implementation and even for longer periods, so that it's difficult for a category like consulting to have the critical mass in terms of purchasing, to know very well the category, who is doing what are the pricing, and all those kind of things. So having some, I would say, human support on top of the app is extremely beneficial, especially in the first phases of the project.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you need to talk about money and ROI and explain, what cost savings you think you can do, what value you think you can create, how much will cost the implementation, and then look at an ROI and look at what's the impact of this digital transformation and how does that reinforce your case. And that's, I mean, you cannot do a business case without a proper ROI analysis. And it's not easy, and because the difficult part is identifying how, implementing the solution and changing the ways of working will help you to make cost savings and to create value. But that's still key to convince your boss and your other stakeholders that now is the time to change, and that has value for them as well. So now, just to kind of at the end of it, and to remind a few things, we said that before, change management in that situation is really a key success factor, and it has to be done very well and from the very beginning. And so just to remind a few things, we said that before, technology is not an enabler, it's an enabler, sorry, it's not the driver. And like Laurent said, we personally don't implement the tool before we do some optimization work, because you need to have a strong foundation if you want to really benefit from such a solution. And so it has to start somewhere, and this is where you need to build a foundation, and then when it's done and you have, of course, you're ready on a digital standpoint, and you don't have other initiatives that are taking too much time or overwhelming your stakeholders, then you can start digitalizing. But the first spot is making sure that you're ready and that you have a strong foundation. So what are the main pitfall? And while we were preparing, we realized that there are many others that we could discuss. We could take 4 hours about that. So the first part is to have that over reliance on tools and think, oh, we have the tools, so it's right. So we mentioned that before we said that. The second part is bad data. If you have bad data, then this is not working. And it starts with also the taxonomy. And we are working on a project right now on taxonomy, and it's complicated. And it's exact example why you need a taxonomy that is clear, that is well explained to everyone, and that is clearly defining what goes in what box, so people can allocate the expenses right. Because at the end, this is what you use to build your category strategy, and if your data is wrong, then what does that strategy means if it's on wrong data? So data, again, big thing. You want the right processes, of course, but beyond that, the main pitfall is to also do start working on digitalization without having a vision. Again, digitalization is just something that is an enabler of a transformation, and a transformation starts with a vision. You need to know this is where we want to go, and this is how we will serve and support our strategy goals. And when you have that, then you can start looking at a solution. Oh, this solution looks nice and we could use it, but it shouldn't be the other way around. Trying from this digital solution to build a vision will not work. It has to be the other way around. And of course, if you have no budget, that's going to be very hard as well, because you need to have a budget to work on this, to take care of the change management. It's not only about the tool, but you will need to educate the users. You'll need to train your teams, particularly your procurement teams, and etc.
It's a
Yeah,
very important distinction. I mean,
yeah,
the currency here might be time and resources more than the cost of the app. Depending on the app, you might be looking at something that can be quite costly, or
yes,
something that could be just a subscription, or something that is indeed charged back to the providers. So the cost of the app itself might not be, I would say, the prime roadblock, but you need to have time to do things properly. And that might be the part that is the most difficult to find.
I agree. Okay, so I suggest we move to the final part, the Q&A, and I wanted just very quickly to go over the key takeaways, and then we'll open for the Q&A. So we
And
mentioned
if
that.
just
Yes.
before that, if you want to drop your questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask your questions
Yeah.
directly, or drop your questions in the chat, and we will relay them.
Absolutely. So consulting procurement is a strategic lever. It's not just a process. So that goes with, consulting is not just another purchase. Most generic tools fall short for consulting unique needs. We have discussed that in the beginning. Digitalization of consulting procurement can be a game changer because it brings some things that are very hard to get for people who work on consulting. But success requires more than technology. It's all about people and processes and structure and etc. And so if you really want to leverage the power of your solution, you need to drive a transformation on how you utilize, buy, and manage consulting. And the last part is you need to know where you want to go and build your business case, because that's how you start. If you're a little bit familiar with change management theories, that's where you start. You start with, building the case for change and building the vision. And that's how you get started for transformation or a change management. There you go. That was my cue. If you have questions, you can unmute, ask them in the chat. We're ready.
I have a question for you, Helen. Could have been a
Okay.
question for me, but I'm the one asking the question, so I take
Okay,
advantage.
cool. Thank you.
You didn't speak about AI.
Yeah. Yes. That's a good question. I know that AI is a big thing, and we talk a lot about, the benefits of AI and generative AI and so on. I tend to be, and I use AI on a daily basis. Let's be clear, I have nothing against AI, and I think it's a wonderful tool for generative and so on, so on. But the reason why I didn't mention it is because I think that AI is a shiny tool for now. But what is really more important is two things. First, it's about the message that we wanted to say is technology is one thing, but really what is important is the foundation. And that foundation, you won't get it through any AI tool. You need to build it from scratch, and that's a people thing. The second thing is that there is a confidentiality dimension. And today, when you work with consulting and like we do, Laurent, and we discuss with our clients, many of the projects we work on are extremely confidential. We work on strategy things, we work on transformations and so on, and M&As. And that element makes it difficult to like open to some common tool that takes information like AI does and train their system with it. So I know that it has changed. I know that now you can have your own LLM and create things, but nonetheless, I think that while I think it can bring things on, helping write and get information, even within the same company, let's say, put it bluntly, even within the same company, if you have a tool that helps you create SOW and that the strategy team is using it and then the operation team is using it, etc., then how do you make sure that the information that you created for a given SOW will not appear in another place of your AI system? Right now, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I still not sure of that confidentiality. And so for now, I think, let's be cautious
So
about it
maybe,
and know
may-
more about it before we plunge into kind of that entire.
maybe I can explain how we are using it and how we plan to use it for Consource. The first thing we do with AI is that we are providing with Consource the profiles of 4,000 companies where we provide who they are, what they do, what is their value proposition, what are their offerings, all those elements. And we have, I would say, collected all this the first time manually, one by one, with ourselves and our team. And we have an app out there that's Improveo.app where companies can manage their own profile. But then we leverage also the kind of retrieval augmented generation using AI, where we capture the information from websites and LinkedIn and all those kind of things to keep those profiles up to date. So that's one thing we do. Another thing we are doing is we are matching the requirements when companies are saying, okay, I need a company that would be based in Latin America, that can do supply chain in chemicals, and that has good ratings, as we have also the feedback from former clients. We are using the simplified, I would say, AI functionalities to match that with the companies that are in our database by fit, and saying, okay, here are the companies in your panel that could fit that. And if you want to go beyond your panel, here are the companies that have the best fit for your requirements. So that's also another way we are using it. The third thing we do, we have currently functionalities to create RFPs, to create SOWs, and all type of contracts. And for the timing, we are doing it I would say, on a static template-based way. We are looking at local implementation of AI solutions so that we can run them on our own servers. That would solve the confidentiality that Hélène was talking about, because we are not confident in kind of having the data going from our platform to ChatGPT or Anthropic or Mistral, even in Europe. And then coming back, they say they are cleaning the data and they are not storing the data, but I would rather master the entire process end to end, and there are open models that you can run on your own servers, and that's what we are looking at to provide, I would say, generation for the creation of RFPs, or rather than creation, I would say I would still start from the templates that we have, because we spend quite a bit of time on them and we think they are state of the art, but use it to improve the text or detail something or get some ideas like you do it when you're using ChatGPT from inside the tool. That's something we're looking at as well. But that would be it. I would not say I would not say we are building around AI. We're using AI to augment the functionalities.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Hey, Helen and
yes.
Lauren. Sorry, I'm running out of time, but just to add, myself, Sandeep. So actually, I come from the procurement background, and I've also done, lots of digital implementation over a period of 10 years, being Coupa, Ariba. And thanks for the session, because in this session of less than an hour, you have summarized my experience of 2 years of one of the biggest implementation I've done in last 2 years. But I have a couple of questions which is not related to implementation. The way you summarized, we did each and everything. But the challenge comes when the benefits are not realized. And this is where when we go for renewal, and then management comes and asks questions, maybe we do not have anything to answer. But from strategy perspective, not today, somewhere I would like to discuss with you guys how to put this forward, because implementation is one of the piece, but the execution and the realization of benefits always remains a question. And I've done it for multiple clients. So the switching of the platforms, like they use standalone, then they once switch one to another. So that has been the practice in the market. So just I have few questions. If you guys can guide me, where should I send that to get your expert opinion? Thank you.
I will share my email in the chat, right? And just shoot us an email, okay? And we can
Yeah.
go further on that, because I think that it will take too long to go there. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Helen. Awesome.
Okay. Otto, you wanted to ask a question as well?
Yes. Thank you, Helen, for your content. It is always, as always, it is great and very clear. I was wondering, from your perspective as guidance of purchasers of consulting, what is your take on ISO 2700, which is the standard about how consulting should be given and what kind of things you should ask when hiring a consultant? Because usually the indisciplined one is the CEO. So
Yes.
at least in the institute, we are trying to approach with training and awareness and things like that about how do we impact the top buyer so that he starts asking the right questions from the beginning and makes the life easier for the procurement guys.
Yeah. So the ISO 27000 is a good start, but there are many elements in there that do not go far enough. For instance, they say you should measure maybe the performance, but they don't say how to do that. There are many elements in there that do not go far enough to really bring the value to a best-in-class management in consulting from a procurement perspective. But it goes absolutely in the right direction, I would say. That's the first thing.
Put on the door for the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can have a follow-up conversation. But from what you're saying, what I take away is that any procurement organization needs to identify who are the, I would say, 2 to 5 to 10 biggest spenders, and spend time with them to educate them on the process.
Yeah, I will say that we do some massage.
What are their needs, and bring them on board. And the CEO can understand that the savings can be generated, even though he will not want you to interfere with if he wants to work with his buddies. But it's not because he wants to work with a specific consultant that there cannot be a competition that will make sure that the specific consultant will remain competitive from a pricing standpoint. So there are conversations that can take place to progressively, I would say, team up with the key stakeholders. That would be my first reaction to your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Otto. Any other questions?
This is it.
This is it. So don't forget, I shared my email in the chat. So if you want to either get some of the content that we have here, or if you want to follow up on that discussion, feel free to send me an email. That will be it for today. We a tiny bit late, but I hope that'll be fine. Thank you to you all. Have an excellent end of your day, and let's keep in touch. Thank you. Bye bye.